They told you that truth would set you free. That's not entirely wrong, but they left out the part where it destroys you first. We've turned honesty into a virtue clean, noble, admirable. We tell children to tell the truth. We praise transparency. We make it sound like clarity is a reward. But the truth, real truth, is not elegant. It is not comforting. It does not arrive like sunlight through a window. It lands like a blade. And when it cuts, it doesn't ask for your permission. You don't grow into it. You're exposed. It doesn't build you up. It burns everything that isn't real. And what's left once the fire has done its work is not some elevated, purified self. It's a stranger. A version of you without disguise, without applause, without performance. That's the truth, not the one you say. The one you live. The one you cannot unknow once it's seen. You want freedom? It begins with demolition. The demolition of comfort. The destruction of every story you've told yourself to stay intact. The unraveling of the roles you've played, even the heroic ones. This is what they don't tell you. Truth is not a gift. It's a burden. Because once you see it, you lose the right to pretend. You can't go back to your old habits. You can't make the same excuses. You can't keep faking connection with people you've outgrown. And that loss, that's the price. You want to live truthfully? You better be prepared to let things die quietly, painfully, without closure. Because truth does not negotiate. It takes what is false and breaks it. And the first thing it breaks is you. Clarity always costs you something. We like to imagine that seeing the truth is a kind of enlightenment, a clean awakening, a doorway to freedom. But when your eyes truly open, the first thing you see is distance. Between you and the world. Between you and the people who still need their illusions. Between who you were and who you can no longer pretend to be. You start to notice the subtle lies that hold everything together. The polite deceptions that make relationships possible. The social rituals that keep people comfortable. And then you realize honesty doesn't fit inside them. You can't belong and be truthful at the same time. You must choose. You try to speak it. At first, gently, carefully. You think people will appreciate it. You think they'll be grateful to hear something real. They won't. You'll tell the truth, and they'll say you're negative. You'll point out what's false, and they'll call you bitter. You'll refuse to flatter, and they'll call you cruel. But you're not cruel. You're just done lying. You can feel it in conversations, the invisible weight of what everyone avoids. The words they don't say, the feelings they disguise in jokes or distractions. Once you see through that, you can't play along anymore. You can't go back to pretending not to notice. And that's when the loneliness begins. Honesty isolates. Not because you want to be alone, but because most people are allergic to seeing too much. They don't want truth. They want comfort. They want stories that confirm their goodness, their meaning, their control. So when you begin to live honestly, not just speak it, but embody it, people sense it. It unsettles them. You don't even have to say much. Your silence will make them uneasy. Because deep down, they know that the air between you is thinner now, and in that thinness, there's no room for pretending. They will begin to drift away. Some will leave politely. Some will call you different. Some will say you've changed. And you have. You stopped lying not out of superiority, but out of exhaustion. You simply grew too tired to carry the masks anymore. This is the cost of seeing clearly. You will begin to lose your comfort. You will begin to lose your audience. You will begin to lose the easy warmth of shared delusion. But what you gain, though it comes slowly, is gravity. You stop floating in performance. You stop bending to fit into the room. You start speaking sentences that taste like steel, not sugar. You become heavier not in sadness, but in substance. And there will come a moment when you're sitting alone, when you realize the loneliness you feel is not emptiness. It's honesty, echoing back at you. A new kind of silence, clean, unpolluted, whole. Truth will not make you popular. It will make you real. And the cost of reality is comfort. Let others call it coldness. Let them misunderstand. That is their payment for staying asleep. Yours is to stay awake and endure the distance that truth creates. You were born into a play. Long before you spoke, you were handed lines. Long before you had thoughts of your own, you were taught the rules of acceptable illusion. Smile when it's uncomfortable. Laugh when something's not funny. Say you're fine even when you're not. And if you follow the script well enough, they call you well-adjusted. But the script is not life. It's a survival mask. A soft cage lined with politeness, small talk, and forced smiles. The world is not structured to reward honesty. It is structured to reward performance. And performance requires a lie. Every institution depends on it. Families, schools, companies, governments. They don't ask for truth. They ask for compliance. They ask you to be digestible, agreeable, efficient, to stay within your character. You walk into a workplace and know you cannot speak your mind. You sit across from a friend and feel the tension beneath the pleasantries. You scroll through social media, where everyone's life is a polished hallucination, carefully staged, heavily filtered, emotionally distant. And yet we call this connection. But what is connection without honesty? It's choreography, a beautifully synchronized lie. And when you decide to stop dancing even quietly, people notice. They can't name it, but they feel it. You become the one who doesn't quite play along. The one who pauses too long before answering. The one who won't say what's expected just to keep things smooth. And smooth is what people want, not depth. Not presence, not truth. Because truth disrupts flow. It introduces risk. It exposes fault lines. Every relationship has an agreement, spoken or not, about what truths are allowed. You start noticing these unspoken contracts. We never talk about your drinking. We don't question the family story. We never admit how miserable this job makes us. Quote. And once you break that contract, even gently, the relationship begins to crumble. Not because you were unkind, but because you broke the illusion that was holding it together. Performance is safety. It protects egos. It keeps group identity intact. It creates the illusion of harmony. But it also builds a wall between you and yourself. Every time you perform instead of speak, you teach your body that your truth is dangerous. And over time, the body begins to believe it. It tenses when you try to be honest. It goes silent when you try to express. It collapses under the weight of unsaid things. And the world says, that's adulthood. But it's not. It's suffocation. You are not obligated to perform your personality forever. You are not required to play the same role just because others are used to it. You can leave the stage. You can speak without rehearsal. You can choose truth over approval. And when you do, yes, you will lose people. But what you gain is not more friends. It's a life that no longer asks you to betray yourself every time you open your mouth. It's easy to speak the truth about others, to call out the hypocrisy around you, to point to the illusions in politics, in religion, in culture, in the curated lies of everyone else's life. But turn that same light inward and you'll see why most people never do. Because there, beneath the persona, behind the image you've polished for years, is the hardest thing to admit. You have been lying to yourself, not just once, not on occasion, but habitually, systematically. You've told yourself stories to survive. And that's not evil, it's human, necessary sometimes. But now, in the silence that truth demands, those stories begin to rot. They sound like, I did the best I could. They were the one who hurt me. I had no choice. Quote, if only they had seen my value, I would have been okay. And maybe those sentences have fragments of truth. But the real truth, the hard truth, lives in the spaces you've avoided for years. Where you were complicit, where you manipulated, where you chose comfort over growth, where you kept quiet, not out of peace, but out of fear. This is the truth that wounds, not the world's truth. Yours. The part of you that abandoned yourself to be accepted. The part that smiled while you died inside. The part that played innocent while knowing full well you were feeding a lie. And you can feel it now rising in the throat, tightening in the chest. Because you've spent your life trying to be the good one, the reasonable one, the right one, but underneath that righteousness is avoidance. Self-honesty doesn't just require confession. It requiert destruction. You must dismantle your identity. Piece by piece, not to become better, but to become real. You have to say, I lied to protect myself. I blamed others because it was easier than facing my own cowardice. I built a personality to survive, but now it's a prison. And then, hardest of all, you must sit in the silence that follows. No justifying, no branding it as growth. Just sitting in the grief of who you pretended to be. Why it hurts so deeply. Because self-honesty doesn't just reveal the lie, it reveals the cost. Every relationship built on that false version of you, fragile. Every opportunity you chased for the wrong reasons, empty. Every moment of aliveness you postponed, waiting to be enough, gone. And there's no refund. That is what makes this part so devastating. You realize you weren't just deceived, you were the deceiver. Not out of malice, out of fear. But here's what's worse. Once you've seen your own lie, you can't go back. You can't unsee where you've lived on autopilot. You can't pretend your avoidance was wisdom. You can't blame your pain on someone else's choices anymore. You're responsible now. And the weight of that truth is almost unbearable. Almost. But if you stay long enough in the heat of that clarity, without reaching for escape, something breaks. Not in you, in the lie. And through the ashes, something quieter begins to emerge. Not pride, not power, but presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need to explain itself. You no longer need to defend who you were. You no longer need to perform strength. Because you've met the part of you that doesn't lie anymore. And it's still breathing when the lies fall away. Not just the ones you told, but the ones you lived. There is no victory, no applause, no burst of insight, no divine affirmation for your courage. There is only silence. A deep, yawning, unfamiliar silence. One that no longer echoes your justifications. One that no longer bends to your narrative. And in that silence, you begin to feel just how much of your life was filled with noise. The noise of pretending, the noise of performing, the noise of proving something to them, to yourself, to a past that no longer exists. You assumed, maybe, that truth would bring relief. But in this stage, it only brings emptiness. A sudden disconnection from your old self, your old roles, your old sense of direction. You are still here, but you do not know who you are without the mask, without the story, without the feedback loop of other people's approval. This is what the spiritual brochures never print. This is what the gurus skip over. That once the illusions are gone, the floor drops out, and you are left with nothing. Not despair, not depression, just nothing. The absence of the false, the absence of the familiar. You wake up and your life feels hollow, not because it is, but because you used to fill it with distraction. Now, you see the walls for what they are, the conversations for what they were, the path you were on, not wrong, just unexamined. And for a while, this feels unbearable. You are not who you were. You are not yet who you will be. You are unclothed. This is the cleansing. Not beautiful, not cinematic, just bare. This is where people panic. This is where most return to the lie. Because the emptiness of being unmasked feels like death. And in a way, it is. But only to what wasn't true. You may find yourself walking differently, speaking less, responding with long silences where words used to live. You may pull away from things you once cared about, not in rebellion, but in disinterest. You may feel foreign in your own body. You may stop relating to people who still live inside their scripts. This is not detachment, it's detox. You are coming off the drug of illusion. And sobriety, real sobriety, always begins with nausea. Don't rush this. Do not fill the silence with a new identity. Do not replace the old lie with a shinier one. Do not call this clarity and try to market it to yourself. Let the silence stay empty. Let it teach you how rare truth really is and how much of your life was built to avoid it. In that stillness, something will shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a flicker. And you'll realize you don't need to be anything. You just need to stop being false. Most people do not fear pain. They fear the loss of their image. They do not fear truth because it's hard. They fear it because it's unflattering. Truth doesn't just expose your mistakes. It exposes your mediocrity, your pettiness, your ego masked as virtue, your clinging masked as love. And most people would rather die than see themselves without their makeup. Honesty threatens everything we've used to build our lives. Our relationships sculpted around emotional bargains. Our careers often built to secure admiration, not meaning. Our beliefs chosen not for truth, but for belonging. To be truly honest, you must be willing to lose all of that. Not in theory, in practice. You must risk being misunderstood. You must risk being called cold, cruel, unstable, selfish. You must risk becoming a stranger to the people who once clapped when you spoke, because now your truth no longer flatters them. And most people are not willing to pay that price. Instead, they tell themselves this: I'm being kind, I'm being tactful. Now's not the right time. But underneath those sentences is the real fear. If I tell the truth, they might leave. And so we lie. Not always with words, but with smiles, with silence, with applause for things we don't respect, with loyalty to dynamics that drain our soul. Because the truth might cost us love, might cost us stability, might leave us exposed in a world that is still asleep. and that's a cost most will not bear. They'll call it maturity. They'll call it compromise. They'll call it emotional intelligence. But it's none of those things. It's fear, disguised, decorated, delivered with poise. The truth is this: most people are loyal to their image, not to their soul. And that's why honesty is rare. They'll call it maturity. They'll call it compromise. They'll call it emotional intelligence. But it's none of those things. It's fear, disguised, decorated, delivered with poise. The truth is this: most people are loyal to their image, not to their soul. And that's why honesty is rare. You will be called difficult. You will be called antisocial. You will be called arrogant. Not because you're any of those things, but because you told the truth and it made someone feel something they didn't want to feel. This is why the path of honesty is narrow. This is why those who walk it often walk alone. Because clarity costs connection. Authenticity ends applause. Truth doesn't sell well in a marketplace built on fantasy. So let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the wish that people will thank you for your clarity. They won't. Not right away, and maybe never. But that's not why you speak. You speak because the alternative silence, dishonesty, performance has become unbearable. You do not speak the truth to change them. You speak it so that you don't disappear inside yourself. Long before your mind admits the truth, your body already knows it. It stiffens when you enter a room where you're not real. It aches after conversations where you smile too much. It tightens when you say yes to what you don't want. It wilts when you say "I'm fine" for the 50th time that month. Your body is not confused. It is not spiritual. It is not interested in your reputation. It is honest. And every time you betray yourself, your body keeps the receipt. We've been taught to see the body as a shell, as a vehicle, to carry our goals, our image, our ambition. But the body is not neutral. It records everything. Every false agreement, every word you swallowed, every moment you stayed silent when your soul was screaming. And eventually, the weight accumulates. Not in theory, in tissue. This is why the lie doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your neck that won't loosen, in your stomach that cramps when you're cornered, in your chest that flutters when you're praised for being someone you're not. Your body is not punishing you. It's trying to get your attention. It's saying, you're living in contradiction. You are not safe in your own life. What we call anxiety is often a lie unlived. You feel off, and you don't know why. You look fine. You sound fine. But inside static. You think something is broken in you. It's not. Something's just false. And the longer you pretend otherwise, the louder your body will scream. Not through drama, but through fatigue, through detachment, through mysterious illnesses with no diagnosis. Your body is not malfunctioning. It's trying to save you from the narrative you've chosen. The nervous system never lies. When you live dishonestly, your nervous system never relaxes. Because dishonesty is threat. Every word you edit for approval keeps your system in vigilance. Every moment of emotional suppression keeps your body in alert. Every truth you postpone, your body postpones healing. This is why chronic stress is not just a lifestyle issue, it's a spiritual one. You are forcing your body to play a role it did not consent to. And it breaks down. When honesty returns, so does the body. But the moment you begin to live truthfully, even clumsily, even softly, the body feels it. At first, it won't feel like relief. It may feel like collapse. You might cry without warning, shake in meetings, feel dizzy in familiar rooms. Not because you're weak, but because your body is finally processing what has been forced to carry alone. This is the real detox. Not green juice, not breathwork, but finally saying the thing you've avoided for years and letting your body react with grief, with rage, with trembling, until it settles into something new. Peace that doesn't depend on pretending. Stop trying to fix your body before you fix your honesty. No affirmation will override a life lived in contradiction. You don't need to be calm. You need to be congruent. Say what you mean. Do what you believe. Stop offering your body as a sacrifice for your persona, and you'll find the body was never your enemy. It was just the first part of you that stopped lying. There comes a moment, and if you're honest, you've already felt it, when you see through something and someone else does not. You see the manipulation in a relationship. You see the falseness in a tradition. You see the deadness in a job, a marriage, a routine. And they don't. They still speak as if the story is intact. They still defend what you can no longer pretend to believe. They still smile in rooms you now find unbearable. And it is heartbreaking. Because your first instinct, if you care, is to help them see, to wake them, to pull back the curtain like someone did for you. But here is one of the heaviest truths. You cannot force someone into clarity. You can love them. You can speak softly. You can scream if you need to. But sight is not contagious. It doesn't transfer through logic. It doesn't spread through good intentions. It comes when it's time and not a second before. And often, the more you push, the more they resist. Because what you see as freedom, they experience as destruction. Think about it. When you saw the truth for the first time, it wasn't graceful. It wrecked you. It destabilized everything you thought you were. So why would you expect anyone else to welcome that? Why would you assume your clarity is a gift to someone who still needs their illusion to breathe? Most people don't reject you because you're wrong. They reject you because you've made their silence impossible. You've introduced friction where there was once flow. You've questioned what they've called normal. You've reminded them, even without words, that there is another way to live. And that is terrifying. Because if they admit you're right, then they have to feel what you felt. And most people would rather remain blind than feel that much. So what do? You stop trying to save them. Not out of spite, not out of indifference, but out of maturity. You realize you are not their catalyst. You are not their teacher. You are not their permission slip. You are simply someone who saw and survived. That is enough. Yes, it will hurt. It will hurt to speak and be met with blank stares. It will hurt to offer your truth and hear silence. It will hurt to leave a room knowing you told the truth and lost someone because of it. But what hurts more? Biting your tongue until it bleeds. Performing wisdom to protect their comfort. Pretending not to see, just so they won't leave. That's not love. That's imprisonment. So let them stay asleep if they must. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. You don't need their agreement. You don't need their awakening. You just need to keep your eyes open and your soul intact. You cannot drag someone into their own truth, but you can refuse to lie just to make them stay. And in time, maybe your clarity will be the echo they hear when the silence finally comes for them too. This is not a triumph. There is no music, no arrival, no crown for your courage. Just stillness, weightless, unceremonious, strangely unfamiliar. You don't feel powerful. You don't feel enlightened. You just feel less burdened. Not because life is easier now, it isn't, but because you've stopped carrying what never belonged to you. The lies, the roles, the pressure to be understood, the ache of being seen as something you never were. That's all gone. And what's left is a kind of peace no one taught you to want. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's the way your shoulders don't tense in rooms that once drained you. It's the way you speak slower now, because you no longer need to prove anything. It's the way you laugh not louder, but deeper, from a place that no longer seeks permission. This is not happiness. It's something older than that. It's reality unarmored. You don't need to tell people you're being honest now. You just are. Your presence no longer contorts to fit. You no longer chase conversations that leave you empty. You no longer perform agreements to be polite. And people will notice. They may call you distant. They may call you strange. Some will disappear entirely. But the ones who stay, they see you. Not the mask. Not the projection. You. And that is the beginning of something real. What you lose, you don't miss. You thought truth would cost you too much. But looking back, what did you really lose? A few false friends. A few fragile comforts. A few mirrors that only showed you what you pretended to be. It hurts, yes, but it also clarifies. And in that clarity, you begin to see how much you were willing to trade for a version of peace that required your silence. Never again. You're not healed, but you're whole. You still flinch sometimes. You still doubt. You still ache for softness in a world that doesn't always offer it. But you are no longer fragmented, no longer split between what you feel and what you say. You are one person now, flawed, sober, still unfinished but coherent. There is no high in this, just a kind of sober gravity. And with that gravity, you begin to live not as someone reaching, but as someone being. Let the peace be simple. No need to narrate it. No need to post it. No need to brand it as wisdom. Just breathe in the absence of pretending. Let it fill the space where performance used to live. Not everything needs to be loud to be true. Sometimes the most honest life is the one no one notices, except you. You wanted freedom. You thought it would feel like sunlight. You thought it would be weightless, like the end of a long sentence. But it feels like this. Cold clarity. No fiction left to warm your hands. No lie left to crawl back to. No audience waiting for your closing speech. Just you. Not improved. Not redeemed. Just revealed. This isn't closure. This is consciousness. And it doesn't congratulate you. It doesn't soothe. It says, now you know. Not what to do. Not how to live. Just what is. You can feel it in your breath how unremarkable this moment is. And how much beauty that gives it. No fireworks. No transformation montée. Just a subtle click, somewhere deep inside, as things align. And you realize, this is what truth feels like. Not power. Not clarity with a bow on it. Just the absence of illusion. You will lose people. You already have. Some left when you stopped performing. Others faded when your silence made them uncomfortable. Some still stay, but they no longer know who you are, and that too is a kind of loss. But that emptiness, it's breathable now. You no longer fill it with apologies. You no longer chase to replace what left. You let the space be space. You will still doubt. There will be days when the old performance tempts you back, when the silence feels too big, when you miss being seen even if it was through a mask. But you won't return, because you remember what it cost you, to belong where your truth wasn't welcome, to be admired for what you never believed, to be surrounded and still alone. You'd rather be truly alone now, because in that solitude, something lives, something real, no lightness, just clarity. The truth won't hold your hand. It won't promise you success. It won't make you lovable. It will make you free in the hardest, quietest way. You don't rise at the end of this story. You settle into your body, into your words, into a life that no longer requires explanation. You become difficult to disturb, not because you are unbothered, but because you are no longer lying. There is no reward for honesty, no prize for clarity, no final scene where everyone understands and forgives you. There is only this: a life lived without disguise, a self no longer divided, a silence that no longer accuses you. And that in this world is as close to freedom as you'll ever get. No lightness, just clarity, and you still breathing.